Okay, the third daughter. I keep saying third sister. In the previous videos, if you hear me say the second sister or the first sister, I meant to say daughter. So, okay, the third daughter. Now, where I left off in the last video, the second daughter, I was talking about how the negative side of Scorpio and the negative side of Cancer is a repeating element, repeating sign, a repeating energy over the generations of this particular family. And here it is again with the third daughter. She's got a Cancer ascendant, a Cancer stellium, and she has a Scorpio moon. With squares and oppositions all over the place. Well, let me just go ahead and start reading. She has her Sun, her Mercury, and her Mars in the sign of Cancer. And she, as I already said, she has her ascendant is Cancer. Sorry about that. Oh, my hawk. Okay. When I saw this chart, the first thing that stood out was the water. There's just so much water. And I see that with this family where the ascendant angle is heavy, those are the individuals in the family line, this family line, that have the mental health and emotional issues. She's got her Sun, her Mercury, and her Mars in the sign of Cancer in her 12th house. Her moon is in Cancer, and her moon is in Scorpio in her 4th house. And even though the house is intercepted with Libra, she still has Uranus in that 4th house. It is in Libra, but the house, there's the moon, and there's Uranus. Uranus is sharing a house with her moon, her Scorpio moon. Now, back to more Scorpio energy. She's got her Sun opposing Jupiter, and then both are squaring Pluto in her 3rd house. She's got a very loud voice, really powerful, booming voice. And Uranus is like sitting right there, you know, where the 4th house begins. It's so it's not in her 3rd house, but it's like it's sitting right there. It's sitting there at 14 degrees Libra. That's where her 4th house begins. So she's got Uranus on the IC, and you know, the Pluto, the Uranus, the loud, really loud voice. I mean, really big voice. And she was criticized for that. She was criticized, you know, for her voice. Her Venus is square her Pluto. You know, Venus, a person's looks, beauty, And with Pluto there, she was always put down, quietly. Sometimes it's the quiet things, the things that, our energy speaks. Sometimes our energy can speak louder than our words. And that was the case with her because she never felt pretty. She never felt beautiful. She was the darkest one in the family. She had very dark skin. And even though she was the one who, attracted, boyfriends easier than everybody else, and not just boyfriends, but, wedding bands, she never got over that. She never felt beautiful, and then, wow, Pluto, she ended up having an accident. She was attacked by a dog, and it mutilated, her face. It's really, really fucking sad. And what was going on when this happened? Well, it was the weekend. They were partying, drinking, drugging, carrying on. And then a fight happened, an argument. And for some reason, the pit bull went for her face. Once you've seen, become aware of the spiritual realm, or what Jungian psychologists call, the collective unconscious, it's what the 12th house represents. People who are sensitive enough, it wouldn't be far-fetched for me to say that the negative energy from that atmosphere, during that partying, the argument, the fighting, the drinking, the drugging, negative spirits, they attract to those things. Negative energies attract to those things, thought forms, whatever you want to call it. Archetypal energies. The negative, there's the positive, but there's also the negative. I mean, it could have just been just a thing, well, yeah, why did the dog choose her? Who knows? Nobody knows. I wasn't there. But that whole Venus Pluto square, then it's in her social house, her 11th house, and she also has Saturn not too far behind. It's not an exact conjunction. It's not considered a conjunction, but it's sharing a house with that Venus. And so that energy is there. And she was in a social situation, when, this drinking. I mean, if you go out, with your friends, or if you have people over, I mean, is that the 11th house? Is that the 5th house? It sounds kind of 11th house to me. But once again, there's so much water, your water sun, your water Mercury. Mars is in its fall in the sign of Cancer. And I don't think it does so great, in Pisces, in its house either. And this individual, felt so powerless for her whole life. She's got Saturn square her Neptune in her 5th house of children. And both of her kids, one's an alcoholic and a drug addict, and the other one, same thing. She also has a T-square. She's got the Sun opposing, did I say that already? I think I did, the T-square. The Sun opposition to Jupiter, and then both of them, squaring Pluto in her house of expression, voice, and the loud voice being something that, contributed to her low self-worth. She's got Pisces on the cusp of her 9th house, like the second daughter did in the previous video. And Neptune, ruling spiritual, the spiritual 9th house, Sag's house. There was a spiritual longing. There was a time when she, after one of her many suicide attempts, somebody went to her and brought her an angel book. Doreen Virtue's angel book. I know that Doreen has left the New Age movement and, moved on to evangelicalism. And I really like the video that P. Steeler did about her. And I don't know. I don't want to digress too much, but, she, I don't think it was sincere. That's just my opinion. Anyway, I got, okay, anyway, this individual brought her a book, and she took that book everywhere. She held on to it, the whole time she was in the hospital. She held on to the book, and, with Pisces on the cusp of her 9th house, there was a spiritual longing, like there was with the second daughter, but there was just no way. When you're in a collective, when you're a part of a collective, and, your vision can only go so far, and you're, like, living in a small town, and you just don't have it in you to be bold enough to break away, to break away from the mold. You're going to be stuck. You're going to be stagnant. Where is her North Node? Her North Node is in Capricorn, in her 6th house. Is it the 6th house of health? Is it the 6th house of work? Well, when she had her, actually before she had her Saturn return, that's when she had her breakdown. And the combination of, a mental health breakdown and drug addiction, I mean, it just, really devastates the mind. And all of it, being rooted in trauma and abuse and neglect and all of these things, it just makes it worse. But her 6th house of work, the 6th house is also the daily routine. It's home in a way. It's not the 4th house, but it's the 6th house is just the day to day. It could be home. It could be. It doesn't have to be work. It doesn't have to be health. This individual is definitely not health conscious. But her North Node is there. And the place of the daily round, for her, she loves to cook, and she's got her moon in the 4th house, so she likes to be home. And even with her addiction issues, she's lucky to have people in her life anyway. Versus somebody who has to be isolated or alone, because she doesn't have anybody around that loves her. She's got Chiron in her 10th house in Aries. So she's got her Aries ruler, Mars, is sunk in the sign of Cancer in the 12th house. And then she's got the sign that Mars rules, Aries, with Chiron there in her 10th house. And conjunct her midheaven. So anything that she wanted to do in the world, even if that just meant, you know, a minimum wage paying job, Chiron is right there saying no. That's where she's busted up. That's where she's wounded. She can't fend for herself. And that's where Chiron showed up for her, in this Scorpion, Cancerian bloodline, spirit line. More about her voice. She's got Saturn in Gemini, along with that, you know, with Venus being there in opposition, you know, with Pluto in her third house, Gemini's house. And it's just really sad, you know, the whole thing about the voice, you know, it just is really sad. Oh, and her, back to her fifth house of children, not only does she have, you know, Neptune there, you know, indicating, you know, it's Saturn is opposing that Neptune, and, you know, both of her children are addicts, alcoholics. But she has Scorpio on the cusp of that fifth house as well, making Pluto the ruler of her fifth house. And there's Pluto in a T-square. And it all spells disempowerment. It spells destruction. Not only does she have a very loud voice as a child and in her adult life, but there's also the hyperactivity. Uranus in the fourth house, in the same house as her moon. She was very hyperactive, just, you know, tearing up walls, and you know, all of them, they all actually did this, you know, just being destructive, and they learned that, you know, from their father. He had that on the first or the second video, it was the second video, the father, you know, the Moon Uranus conjunction, and then opposition straight to his fifth house of children. You know, again, he was a product of two alcoholics, you know, that abused him, and that's what he became. She doesn't have that conjunction, but her moon and Uranus, again, are sharing her, the same house. And that agitation, that nervousness, that hyperactivity, that makes them get high, that makes them drink, and it's all of that, you know, Uranus in the fourth house. I mean, she's got Uranus in the fourth house with her moon. I mean, that's chaos. That's destruction, that's violence. Uranus is also, she's got Aquarius on the cusp of her eighth house, which would make Uranus, which is posited in her fourth house, the ruler of her eighth house. And with all of this harshness, all these hard aspects on the chart and placements, you know, Uranus being, you know, the ruler of the eighth house, Uranus ruling Scorpio's house. Not good. Now, she is definitely eccentric, you know, very eccentric, very odd, eccentric type personality. She also allowed harm to come to her children, though. Neptune, Saturn opposing Neptune in her fifth house of children. Neptune, alcoholics. Everyone that she's been with, everyone she's married, alcoholic or addict or both. And that is this is another expression of another product of an alcoholic, religious fanatic, abusive family system. She is another product. Pisces being on the cusp of her 9th house, Neptune ruling the 9th house. I mean, it's not just spiritual sensitivity, but it's also the fog and the confusion and the escapism that Pisces and Neptune are. I mean, Neptune rules Pisces, you know, that Neptune is the ruler of the 9th house because Pisces is on the cusp of that 9th house, and that's exactly what happened. This individual, you know, doesn't have any faith in the churches, you know, not at the Kingdom Hall anymore, but no faith in the churches. So it was like a lost faith thing, you know. It just, there's just, and you can have your individual faith, but that's not easy to do when you're an addict and a psychiatric patient all at the same time. I mean, it just keeps going and keeps going. She's got Virgo on the cusp of her 3rd house, and Mercury is posited in her 12th house in the sign of Cancer. And with Mercury, I mean, planets, they're so weak. Depending on the rest of the chart, you know, it just, the planets, they just weaken in the 12th house. And her Mercury being in that 12th house, and 2 of the siblings have this, by the way. She didn't do great, you know, with school. You know, the religion said that, you know, school wasn't important, and punished people, you know, who went to college. It also makes me wonder if this individual would just be tired, you know, during her life. She's just tired. You know, the 12th house is also the house of sleep. And, yeah, Mars being there, just not much energy, just tired. You know, I do see that in this individual.